Whether you want to term it a crisis or a challenge, most will agree that something is going on here, has been for a bit now. Walk us through it, though, so people can understand what's happening on the southern border. Is it a problem? If so, what do we do about it?
Okay, here's the thing about the Democrats in general and the Biden administration. They don't have good PR. They need good PR people, good marketing people, because they are doing things, and they are doing things that are reasonable, but just no one knows about it because they like hide their candle under a bushel. They have put aside money to address the problem. They have reunited most of the children separated from their parents by the previous administration. Did you know that? They have plans to expedite hearings and take the asylum hearings out of the hands of the courts because they're backlogged in the courts, and have special appointed arbitrators who would look at all the paperwork and determine whether these people have legitimate claims to asylum. That hasn't been done, but they're working on it. They're trying to work on stopping the smuggling and the trafficking operations that go through the border. They're just doing a whole lot of things that would expand access to legal ways to come into the country. And there are legal ways to do that. Now, when they took in all the Afghanis, they didn't just say, okay, go forth and be Afghanis in this country. They kept them in certain bases and facilities and worked through all their paperwork.
Yeah.
What people don't know is a lot of those people would have been out earlier, save for the fact that during the previous administration, a man by the name of Miller, Stephen Miller, was blocking vetting processes for a lot of the interpreters and the people that worked with our government. So when they got here, they had to be vetted here.
Yeah.
Well, we can't just do that to every group of people that comes in. So yes, they're maintaining that if you come to the Mexican border, you're going to stay in Mexico until you're vetted. They're trying to go in, and I know Kamala Harris has been to several countries where we're getting a bulk of people coming in or trying to come in, and going to those countries to see what we can do to keep them there and vet them there and then move them if they meet the criteria to be here.
Right.
I also know that with the Afghanis, some of them they said, no, you're going back. And they sent them back because once they vetted them, they found out that they were not very nice people and didn't need to be here. So they sent them back. But once again, if you don't have a good public relations firm that's going to market what you're doing, the general population is not going to know. But they just aren't marketing what they're doing. It is, I think, the downfall of the Democratic Party. They just don't have good public relations people and marketing people.
Messaging is everything. Speaking of which, recently, your home state of Virginia went red, went Republican, somewhat unexpectedly in the gubernatorial election. This doesn't usually happen. So what exactly happened this time? Do you think that was another messaging error or concern?
Well, first off, in Virginia, off-year elections, if a Democrat wins the presidential race, then the off-year election in Virginia generally goes to a Republican.
Right.
Don't understand it, but that's what happens. One thing that Mr. Youngkin did in order to get elected was to distance himself from Mr. Trump, from certain hot topics such as abortion and Roe versus Wade, although he was caught on a hot mic saying, well, when I get control of the Senate and the House, we'll take care of abortion in Virginia. He got the House, but he didn't get the Senate because the Senate wasn't up for election. And the Senate is still Democrat. And he barely has the House by 2 votes.
Yeah.
And all it takes is 2 or 3 of the softer Republicans, the more moderate Republicans to go, nope, this isn't good for Virginia. So why did we go red? I think the Democrats just sat back and said, well, he won't get it. He won't get it. Originally, Terry McAuliffe was polling 16 points ahead of him. And then McAuliffe made one error.
The school comment.
And the school comment about, I don't think parents should have a say in schools, but it was a soundbite taken out of a larger piece. And in the state of Virginia, every parent has the right to come into the school and see what's being taught in the curriculum, see what's being, and voice an opinion. When I wrote curriculum, I had to put my curriculum in the public libraries for the parents to read and comment. And in fact, when I wrote the dual enrollment environmental science, the students, I used the term environmental racism. Well, I was made to remove that term and come up with an innocuous term that did not mean environmental racism, even though I was still teaching how public housing was built on a Superfund site where lead was in the soil, and how an elementary school in a black neighborhood and the neighborhood were built on an old landfill. And that is partly what environmental racism is. But parents were offended by it. So it had to come out. But I was able to just rename it but still teach the same thing. In the case of Mr. McAuliffe, they were talking about the parent who demanded that Toni Morrison, beloved, not be taught in the 12th grade. Well, the catch is that book is on the reading list from the college boards for AP English for the 12th grade. It's part of a prescribed reading program for college boards. And when you go to take the AP exam, that book could show up as part of the questions.
Now, America is so big and full of news and drama that sometimes people lose sight of what's going on internationally. So, aside from what's happening in Ukraine right now with Russia, which is a whole other show altogether coming up, what are some global concerns we need to keep an eye on right now? For example, how real is the threat of China surpassing us as the top economic superpower of the world?
Well, scary thought, but China is a big economic beast, so to speak. It is a superpower. And we've allowed that to happen because we've shipped all of our chip processing, all of our electronic processing. What we're seeing is now that we have the national chip shortage with cars, is that the car manufacturers are starting to move their chip processing and manufacturing, battery manufacturing back to this country. Oh, gee, novel idea. Then you can't be held hostage by shipping issues.
Yeah.
Toyota announced they're putting a big, brand new battery manufacturing plant for their electric cars and for their hybrids in North Carolina. They already have a plant where they build in Marysville, Tennessee. They have a Toyota plant where they build vehicles in this country.
Okay.
If we're building things here, and maybe, that is a Japanese company, Toyota, and I'm sorry, I own a Prius. So, if they're doing that, they worked with Ford on the original Prius hybrids. If we have collaboration like that, then I can live with bringing the things in to this country and building them here and manufacturing here. But having to buy them from China, I got a real problem. If I buy something from Amazon, I look for the things that are made in this country. I try not to buy things that are made in China.
Right.
Because I don't think I should be supporting their economy, even though by supporting Jeff Bezos, I'm making him a healthy, rich billionaire. The lesser of two evils, and I find that I link that idea of not having to go search multiple stores for something. And that, brings me to the book that I read, State of Terror. I usually just read trashy novels and things of very little substance, but I decided to read that one because I was intrigued by Louise Penny, and I wanted to see how she wrote. And it was very thinly veiled as to what was going on and who was who, and it was a very interesting book. In fact, it was one that I could not put down. I stayed up one night and read till about 3 a.m.
Was it an equal parts collaboration between Louise Penny and Hillary?
From what I've gathered from seeing the hype on the book and after reading it, I am pretty sure that Louise Penny did the bulk of the writing, but all of the information and the color and the meat of the book was coming from Hillary Clinton as the former Secretary of State, because it was very plainly about some of the things that a Secretary of State would be doing, and very thinly veiled colors of, the former president who botched things up, and he let this person out of house arrest that should have been kept forever in house arrest. And, it's a very interesting book.
All right, now, you're an educator, of course, so now it's time for you to give President Biden his first grade on the Barbara Tabor University annual report card. Without even saying it, we know Trump was a straight F student for you, and many, but...
Trump was a graduate of Trump University. What do you want?
Right, but let's hear how Joe is doing. How is Joe Biden doing? Give him his grade.
I think that Joe is doing C work simply because Joe does not format and showcase what Joe is actually doing. He is very open. I mean, when he had his physical, the reports came right out, everything. He's very open about what's going on and what he's doing and how negotiations are working, but he's not the star of the class because he doesn't tell about what he's actually doing that would make him star quality. I admire the man. I admire the work he's doing. But if I didn't go digging for it, I wouldn't know what he was doing. It goes right back to what I was saying before. It's public relations and marketing. And he needs a better marketer. Pete Buttigieg is a fairly good marketer of his transportation stuff, but you still don't hear enough from it. You hear virtually nothing from Kamala Harris. You just happen to catch her on TV where she's coming back from this place or going to this place, and you're not hearing what she's accomplished, what kinds of things that they're doing with what she's accomplished. He's still going to have that 33% of the population that's going to think that he's horrible and nothing's being done. Their pseudo-God would do it better, although in 4 years he did nothing except drive us into the ground. Then you're going to be back at the same point in 2022 and 2024. It's going to be a bad scene for Democrats because they're not publicizing what they're doing. They're not saying, hey, look, we did this, and this is for you. Hey, we're the ones who did this, and we got this for you. Although, in some places where Republican congressional delegations have come up and said, oh, look what we did. We've got this, we've got this. There have been billboards appear that say, yes, you got this, this, and this for your community, but these people did not vote for it. And I'm sorry, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
Right.
But that is where I stand with Mr. Biden and his grade. I see maybe a C plus.